Greetings, 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 and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. As always, we're going to go around and introduce our esteemed panel, as always, starting with Douglas Graham, who leaves us and go and have fun in the sun, but I think he's feeling a little chilly willy today himself. Hey, Doug.
It isn't quite as hot as it has been. Um, I don't miss the cold. I do like the heat. Um, I'm a retired physician. I spent 30 years working in the western suburbs of Chicago, and then I retired, spent 2 years working in the congressman's office. And it really opened my eyes to public health and public service. And it's an honor to be here to work with Dr. Hampton and the congressman. And I'm going to do my best to answer your questions.
Thank you so very much, Doug. Well, for the weight loss guru, the Wolfgang Puck of not only the kitchen, but medicine just as well, that's our very own Tony Hampton. Hey, Dr. Hampton.
Hey, grateful to be here. Appreciate the platform, Congressman Nikki, your leadership, and of course, my good friend, Dr. Graham, doctor on the south side of Chicago. I fought my way to the south side after being a doctor on the west side. So I figured I had to bring my talent south. I gave it to the west side for probably about 18 years, and the last part of my career has been on this side of town. Family doctor, obesity doctor, all about, how can we help people heal? How can we give them the tools and remove the barriers? So I'm all about removing barriers, giving people grace when they struggle, and being empathetic when they need a helping hand. So I'm happy to be here, happy to answer questions, and thank you, Nikki, for the opportunity.
Outstanding. Well, to the person who teaches us that each and every day that true wealth is your health, our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman?
Well, thank you very much, and I am delighted because I've had a wonderful day. I actually had a doctor's appointment this morning at 7:45. I, at 7:45, I had an appointment at the eye clinic at the University of Illinois, and they took real good care of me, so I felt good. But on the way to the clinic, I had my radio on, and I was listening to an interview that CEO Donald Dew was doing, uh, talking about habilitative systems and the fact that they have an event coming up Friday where they're going to be giving awards to educators and educators that they have worked with. And as I listened to Don, nobody was in the car with me
Mm.
but myself.
Mm.
And my chest was just expanding as I listened to Mr. Dew talk about how HSI started, the kind of services that they provide, the kind of work that they have done over the years, and the fact that they really started with a $500 grant that they received from, or that the church where they started received from Chicago Temple. And then he mentioned just an array of outstanding individuals who had been a part of the community, and even to the extent of talking about the behavior health services that they provide, but also the establishment of health clinics and programs. And people would never know that individuals who were not physicians, who were not doctors, who did not have college degrees, who didn't have any of that, were very instrumental in starting these programs and activities. And now all kinds of people benefit. And he mentioned people like Erlene Lindsay and people like Ernie and Gloria Jenkins. And then the people that he is giving awards to, people like Paul Adams, where every kid who comes out of their school gets accepted into a college. And I used to live on the same block where Provident used to exist. It was not Provident St. Mail, it was just Provident. And of course, St. Mail was in another location, and Paul was able to bring all of that together. Now, every kid, and they're located right on Central Park before you get to Madison Street, and every kid that comes through there gets accepted into college if they want to go. And so I think that I'm still celebrating Thanksgiving
Mm.
because we have so much stuff to be thankful for, and to see individuals who come right out of the hood, like Dr. Tony Hampton, who becomes an outstanding physician coming out of the Garfield Park community. Yeah, I feel pretty good about things. I feel great about things. I feel, there are more physicians running for office because many of them bring unique experiences to the public debate and to the discussions, and what they're talking about in many instances are not speculative, not speculation. They're talking about experiences. And that's why our democracy is so important, because when we have different voices, different individuals, people with different levels of expertise, all engaged together, I think that's when you get the best decisions. So I want to thank our panelists for being with us. We've missed Dr. Hampton, and he's here today. And so I'm ready to just go right ahead, Nicole, and let's get it on.
Okay, want to say hey to Sister Bonnie Smetley, who is here with us. Hey, Sister Bonnie, how are you? And want to say hey to Carrie Steele, who is here with us just as well. So, hey, Carrie, good to see you. Well, Dr. Hampton, you had some things that you wanted to share. Why don't you take us away?
Yeah, well, before I share what I had to share, I do want to, acknowledge Dr. Paul Adams of Providence St. Mel's. My kids did attend that school, and I purposely took them out of this Oak Park neighborhood and sent them to the heart of the West Side so that they would get an experience that only a school like that could give them. Just a gentleman who had an unshakable, belief in the abilities of children of color. I'll never forget seeing him cut the grass. Um, the president of the school, the leader, the founder, cutting the grass. You just don't see that everywhere. Setting expectations that this is okay. He was just really amazing, and yeah, my kids benefited from that rigor, that insane rigor that's necessary to take our kids from, their maybe average performance to a performance that will get them to some of the best schools in the country. So I am grateful for what they've done over there, and I hope we continue to have leaders like him to inspire us and let us know this is kind of how you can do it. So now I was spending some time yesterday, maybe the day before, uh, watching something on Peacock with my wife, and it was a movie. It was called All Her Fault. And I was so inspired by the title as I noticed, and I don't watch a lot of programs that have commercials streaming by. And I noticed immediately that there's a whole lot of pharmaceutical things that come on the screen when you're watching these programs. And it was perplexing. So I got curious and I was asking myself, whose fault is that we have so many advertisements in front of us? And then I got really curious, and I even have a video coming out on my channel tomorrow that speaks to this. But I said, well, these drugs that are being advertised, as an example, there's one called Dupixent, and this drug is for eczema, which is the dry skin you see commonly in people with things like asthma. And the question is, what does that drug cost in 2025? And the answer was, I looked it up and it said 2 cartons is a monthly injection. So you get 2 cartons and it's $4,000. So now my assumption is that one injection for 1 month, one injection for the next. So let's just say $2,000 a month for your eczema to calm your skin. And then I saw another drug called Skyrizi. It's for psoriasis and inflammatory bowel disease. And that drug, I looked it up, and it was $22,000 given every 8 to 12 weeks for psoriasis, another skin condition. Then I saw another one that was Rinvoq, and that drug for rheumatoid arthritis and also atopic dermatitis, another skin. It was 30-day supply was $6,700. And so why did I make a video about this? Because my question was, as the title of the show was, it said all her fault. So the question is, whose fault is this? That we live in a world where it's okay to spend that kind of money on this innovation. And what I want to say out loud is, I absolutely appreciate innovation. My concern is all of those health conditions are what I call metabolic health conditions. They're inflammation conditions. And what I've seen in my clinical practice is that if you fix your diet, if you reduce your stress and get enough sleep and take care of this temple called the human body, for a large percentage of people, I'm not saying 100%, we have resistant cases for sure. And I'm sure my colleague, Dr. Graham, will honor that as a rheumatological doctor. You got people who just struggle. And I can't say that the fork will fix everybody. It'll make everybody better, but it can't fix everybody. Imagine if we lived in a world where instead of spending that kind of money, we use that money to pay for a person to coach a patient to stay on track with their lifestyle changes. We spend some of that money to pay for a person to have a continuous glucose meter in their arm so that they can monitor to see the sugar spiking foods and then avoid those foods because they just were reminded that that's a sugar spiking food. So their behavior changes because they have that support. Imagine a world where instead of spending $6,000 a month on a drug, we pay for behavioral health. So when I struggle, I can get a therapist in front of me who can help me through my struggle in my relationship, in my job, in my life, or cognitive behavioral therapy that teaches my behavior change that's necessary. So I won't grab the donut when I should be grabbing a real food item. Imagine a world where we pay for home blood pressure cuffs and scales that the patient can get, that the doctor, patient, pharmacist, and coach can all see the results, and we can act on that. Or even better, because before I took my trip to Washington, Congressman, a few weeks ago, over a 2-week period, the 2 weeks before I left, I took 8 people off medicines over a 2-week period. Now, in my career as a doctor, the 18 years prior to becoming this doctor who focuses on food as medicine, it was one or two people I took off of medicine in 18 years. Now, my colleague, Dr. Graham, I'm not sure. Now, you have a different specialty, so some of your medicines they get off because they're pretty intense, drugs that they don't necessarily do for life. But as a family doctor who treats diabetes, hypertension, people stay on medicine forever. But if I can take 8 people off of medicines in 2 weeks, the question is, what would that mean if there's more doctors who practice this way? What would that mean for the cost of copays and medicines for that patient? What would it mean for the health system? What would it mean for the country if we spent $6,000 a month? What would it cost to have a coach? I don't think it's going to cost $6,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, everything that I mentioned would cost way less than $6,000 a month. So my question is, our health system is not getting a lot of return on investment. We spend a lot of money on innovation. We're probably the best country in the world for that. And I do applaud our country, and I'm grateful that we have capitalism that'll incentivize us to do these things. But if we're saying that we want to reduce the cost of healthcare, it would make way more sense, in my opinion, to spend some of our dollars on those 8 people who got off of medicine. Because in my opinion, and some were some had diabetes, some had hypertension. How much money are we saving every year because they're not dealing with those diagnoses anymore? They're in remission. And I would argue that there's so much money left over, we can spend some of those money to create even more programs to help people who haven't achieved that yet. So my question is, what went wrong? Whose fault is it, as the title of that show on Peacock would ask, and why can't we do better? Are we not intelligent enough to recognize we're going in the wrong direction? Are we not intelligent enough to say enough is enough with the system that makes it more advantageous for us to do the medicine first model? And my hope is that before I take my last breath, the model of the future is one where we walk with people and we try to do lifestyle first. And in many cases, we can do lifestyle with new innovation first. And then as people heal, we can wean away from the innovation and just maintain the lifestyle. So I'm curious, Dr. Graham, in your years taking care of people in the rheumatological field, was there anything about how you started your journey and how you concluded it, and now you're in a different season?
Yeah. So
what did you see?
So it's really kind of it's a great question. When I started in rheumatology, the treatment for rheumatoid arthritis was to give people enough aspirin until their ears rang. And that's how you really had the right dose.
Right.
Which is really a very, very toxic treatment, because sometimes that ringing doesn't go away.
Right.
Now, it does help the pain and the swelling of the joints, but it did nothing to prevent the damage or the progression of the disease. Mm-hmm. In 1985, when I started my practice, 60% of the people filed for disability within 5 years of diagnosis.
Wow.
So it was a very, very difficult disease to treat. And the initial part of treatment was we were so afraid of the consequences and the side effects of the drugs.
Right.
We used the mildest drugs first and then started the more stronger drugs, which had the potential for more side effects, up until at some point we were using cancer chemotherapy drugs and radiation therapy, right, which really had nothing to do with the biology of the disease, which I think is really, really interesting. So fortunately, I guess rheumatology has been kind of like the poor stepkid, and we were able to take a lot of the drugs from the transplantation world, a lot of the drugs that people use to prevent organ rejection, we thought were going to be useful in our field. And so we took a couple of them and tried them, and they had they worked, not perfectly, but better than aspirin and better than steroids. And steroids are very, very troublesome for rheumatology because one, they work very, very quickly and they make you feel very, very good. But they are some of the hardest side effects to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It affects so much of your body. It raises your blood pressure. It increases your appetite. It can cause cataracts. And as you know, it will raise your blood sugar and precipitate diabetes. Um, Most people, when introduced to steroids, want to get off of them because they really affect your ability to make decisions and to operate because of the intensity of the experience. I'm not sure I understand how the pharmaceutical industry decided to look into the drugs
Mm-hmm.
for these diseases and develop what they call the biologics or monoclonal antibodies. But that was really a critical turning point about 30 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
which has really enabled us to be much, much more effective in our treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And when I began in 1985, we used to have joint replacement clinics because the disease would eat away and damage the joints. You couldn't use your hands, your ankles, your knees, your shoulders very well. So we had to put in artificial joints. Nowadays, there are no rheumatoid arthritis hand clinics.
Mm-hmm.
They've had so much control of the damage of the disease. But as you point out, it's virtually impossible to get people off treatment once they started because these are really suppressive treatments. They're not curative treatments. They help modulate the immune system, but we're not quite ready yet to reset the immune system so the body stops attacking you as if you're foreign. So we've become sophisticated, effective, less toxic, but we're still stuck taking medication in most cases for a lifetime.
Interesting. I tried to pull up some type of explanation for how this makes sense. Of what I did pull up brief. It just says biologics by depleting B cells, infection fighting B cells also turns off many autoimmune conditions. So sounds like it's kind of that type of approach. And
Well, it's also kind of totally like a Star Wars defense.
yeah.
Inflammation is like a recipe. There are
Mhm.
lots of different ingredients and seasonings, and everybody's inflammation is slightly different. We now have these biologics that target some of the seasonings or the species. For
Yeah.
instance, in rheumatoid arthritis, there's one called TNF alpha,
Mm-hmm.
which is often very elevated. We have specific monoclonal antibodies that either interfere with TNF alpha or keeping it from binding to its particular binding site in the immune system. So whether you knock it out of the sky or you keep it from landing, it no longer can drive the inflammatory process. So we went from none of these drugs to virtually a whole pantry full of these drugs. Our problem now is we're not sure which sequence to use them in or which combinations to use them in.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I decided to check my health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I happen to believe that everything almost that we do falls prey to our system of capitalism
Mm.
and our system of
Mhm.
economics in the country. Now, I pay $856 a month for health insurance
Mm-hmm.
for a single person, me.
Mm.
And that does not cover that does not cover dental nor vision. I'm saying that's
Yeah.
separate. It's a different place. And then I go and pay what I have to pay for each one of those. And then whenever I go to the dentist, I also add some cash to whatever it is that the insurance pays. And so when you consider our system of capitalism, which says whatever you contribute to the economy is what you get in return. And it seems to me that the regulators of our society
Mm-hmm.
is influenced greatly, that they are influenced, whatever it is that they're regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not enough to where the basic public is, but where self interest entities are. And those self interest entities end up having more influence on the regulators than the overall users of whatever it is that they provide. Well, whether it's pharmaceuticals or whether it is the service that is provided, that the public does not exercise nearly the kind of influence
Mm-hmm.
over the outcome of that as the public could and should. And I don't know if that's being lax on the part of the public or just being overpowered by whatever the influence entity is from a self interest vantage point. And to me, that's a big question that we always are trying to answer. And it comes out oftentimes not in the best interest of the general public, but in the best interest of a narrower public than the masses. So
I,
masses beware.
so I would agree with that 100%. And that we have had rules, regulations, executive orders that have been designed to favor those who have financial influence and disfavor those who don't have the same degree of financial influence. So to remedy that, I think I've said this before, we'll have to go back and think about our campaign contributions and say a corporation is not a human being. A corporation should be able to contribute as much as a single human being, but not more than a single human being. Because if you have a giant like Microsoft or Apple or Google or Facebook who can essentially, or like Elon Musk, dictate campaign funding
Mm-hmm.
and influence elections financially, you no longer have democracy where you have people voting on discussion of ideas. It's kind of like you have nothing but ringers in the race.
Yeah.
You don't really get to choose people based on policy. You're getting choices based on who can afford the most expensive and slick campaign.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I think if I had to identify the biggest problem, it's because the laws are passed to subsidize. We actually have socialism for large corporations
Right.
and exploitation for the middle class and others.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get to a sense of awareness about that and then a motivation to address this in a productive way
Yeah.
without violence and conflict.
It seems, yeah. Well, Congressman, you go ahead.
No, go.
Well, I was just gonna, yeah. I remember probably watching some, program. A lot of times, some politicians say we get all our information from Twitter and YouTube, and it's a problem. But I actually think it's not a problem because independent media sometimes will lay things out in a way that provides the clarity that you can't get on CNN because it's not designed for clarity. And so I've learned a couple of things. One was that one survey showed 93% of decisions made by most people in leadership and politics is based on their lobbyists, right? Not based on what they say on the campaign trail. So that's number one. Number two, I learned about Citizens United and that decision that basically made it okay to be influenced by, corporations, and it just seems like it's, if I were to clean it up a little bit, I'd say it's kind of legal bribery. And unfortunately, like it was described momentarily a moment ago, it's what we have. So what do you do when the entire system is designed around, I don't want my congresspeople and my senators and my mayors and governors to spend so much energy trying to raise money because they have to convince these people with the deep pockets to support them. It'd be nice if they spent more time trying to figure out how to maybe collaborate and figure out how to get some of this stuff passed. But I do think that Citizens United decision, which I would love to figure out how to reverse, that would be probably the most important thing we can do to at least move us back to a model where the $50 contribution actually means something. And I just don't think there's enough people with the courage to try that model. I think that it has worked for a few, but it's tough, and I just hope that we can, what I'm really, as a metabolically trained doctor, my frustration is, let's just assume that these things didn't exist and we could be honest and try to help people do the right thing. We're putting our resources in the wrong place. We're spending millions and millions and billions of dollars on putting out the fire with medicines that don't deal with why we have a fire. And what I'm saying is, how about if we address the reason why you have inflammation in your joints in the first place? How about if we address those ultra processed foods that people are consuming, and these seed oils and excessive sugar, excessive snacking, grazing like a cow? The average American looks like a goat or a cow. You just see their mouth moving all day long. And it's like, that's not what the human body was designed. And when you do that, your insulin level stays super high. Your mitochondria, your energy producing cells, can't work properly. You're irritating your gut because you never let it rest. So your risk for inflammation and, I would argue, autoimmune diseases are going to be sky high. So I just think that, but we're not incentivized to focus on the root cause, because capitalism says if I got a big donation from a company that's going to make money $6,000 a month, it's hard to overcome that with a $50 donation from my home and your home. And so that's why we're in a conundrum. But my hope is that, and that's why I'm like you, Congressman, I'm optimistic. And I believe that if we continue to put in front of people information that provides clarity, then maybe if we're truly a capitalistic country, then maybe we can then, with that knowledge, then move towards a model where we start to fight against these principles. Because at some point, people are going to have the people are going to have a voice that's going to resonate.
But I don't think we teach people that living in a capitalistic society really means that you have to view the whole society as being groups involved in hatchet fights, and everybody's got a hatchet except those who don't involve themselves. And so if you're in a hatchet fight and everybody's got a hatchet except you, who you think gonna be on the floor?
That's right.
Bludgeoned to death because you're not defending yourself. And everybody else are defending themselves.
Wow.
And you're not. And so you automatically would be the first to fall.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way democracy works.
Wow.
And if you're not taught that,
Mm.
you're thinking you're going to be protected without protecting yourself.
Understood.
And that's just not the case. It just does not work that way. It really does not.
That's fair. Sounds like we need to get a lot of people together who don't have those ways to protect themselves to get together. And it reminds me of a video I saw of some ants and a some bees, I think it was, and they end up putting them all in the same container. And when they first put them in there, the bees had a huge advantage. But what seemed to work when the ants decided, you know what? How about if 20 of us jump on one bee? And they jumped on that one bee and they found that that was working. So they continued that collaborative effort. And so now, is that a dangerous game? Absolutely. I see coyotes doing the same thing with a lion or a tiger. They say it's about 20 of us and one lion. We're just going to have to all go at it. At the same, somebody's going to get hurt, but we're going to go at it and we have a chance. So I agree, Congressman. This is a tough fight. My hope, though, and it seems like when the extremes occur, rather you look at who's in office. If you're an Obama fan or not a fan, that's an extreme for somebody on the other side. If you're a Trump fan or not a fan, that's an extreme. So it seems like people get mobilized when they see extremes occur, and then they start to get more motivated. And I think continuing to motivate people to want to have a voice, to want to fight, to be a bunch of ants jumping on a bee is something we don't want to give up on. But again, I'm grateful that we have the same perspective, which is let's not give up. I mean, a couple of years ago, we was giving up on the Bears. It looked like we got a pretty good team this year.
Oh, don't mention it.
Right, okay.
Heartbreak Hotel.
That's right. And it's hard for me because, Advocate Aurora is Illinois and Wisconsin. So now I chair the governing council for Illinois and Wisconsin. So in our meetings, I have to live with my colleagues on the other side of the border as they celebrate this dominance the Packers have had over us. But I am very optimistic.
There's a second game coming on our
Amen.
field.
When is that going to happen?
A couple weeks on a Saturday night.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's the hope we hold on to, Congressman.
Green Bay is still not too far away.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to keep fighting because you may wake up one day. Shadur Sanders is still fighting. That's why he's showing us something. You got to give people a chance to, if you stay in the game, if you don't give up, then we have a chance. And until you don't have a chance.
The technical stuff you don't have to get rid of. I'm saying all of the technical information that we learn and that we know works. So, but we've got to make use of both. These concepts.
Yes.
We got to do that, but we still have to research. We still have to train. We still have to find the best modalities in terms of treatment. We have to do all of the preventive things that we know makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so you got to do all of it. You don't want to discard any of it. And if you get all of it working together, then those are the best options that exist to create the kind of society that we really want. I mean, I love the idea that life expectancy is continuing to go up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that people are able to live. A friend of mine passed away this morning, and he was 95, and he had said he wanted to be 100, and his grandson was with him Sunday afternoon. They were watching the game, football game, and he was cool. He knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
He knew the plays. He knew what was happening. But he passed away this morning,
Mm.
and he had a very meaningful, because he still was going out to events. He loved to dress up. He had a suit for every event and different things. And he was a great entertainer
Mm.
and could sing and do things and all of that. And so he lived right down to the point. And hey, he, he was gone.
Yeah,
So
just like that. Yeah. Uh, a life of purpose lived well. And I learned recently that my happiness is not defined by a vacation. I was watching this Diary of a CEO, and I saw an interview where they talked about if you go to, I think the guest said he loved going to Maui. He was sitting on the beach with his son. And while on the beach with his son, he would look up and realize I'm on the beach with my son in Maui. It can't get much better than that. So he ranked it a 10 out of 10. And then, but he reflected that when he's at home with his son and they're playing, some board game, he said it was a 9 out of 10. So it wasn't a big difference. So most people think their life experience is defined by the fact that they're in a nice place on a vacation. And what the gentleman said was it was the idea that you were having an opportunity to pause and take time to be with your son or your wife or your daughter or what other, just having a moment in a busy life. When we finish this conversation, I'll have some time to spend with my wife and maybe say when my kids, they're adults now, but when they come home, just have moments. And so the vacation is really about having more time to have moments.
Mhm.
And the gentleman who passed away, bless his soul, he was having a moment with his family watching that game. And that's a memory they'll always have. And I just think that if we could pause and people can just have moments and not spend a lot of time, you want to chase whatever goal you have, but don't think that the Range Rover is going to make you happy. Now it's going to make you smile a little bit when you go to the dealership. Let's be clear about that. but it's really not the idea that you are able to have this nice car. It's more about freedom, having time. I think, and what they said is like, if we can just spend energy looking for freedom so that we can have more time with our family, just work hard so you can have freedom. Why save a 401k so you can have freedom? And I'm just grateful that this man lived 95 years, 95 years that most people don't ever get. And that's why we got to keep fighting for us to be healthier, have a long health span so that we can get to the end of life the day before and still know the Bears are in the game and he knows the plays. And that's a beautiful way to end it. And so I'm really grateful that you had that friend. He had that moment with his family. So life is good. Life is good.
Outstanding. We want to say hey to Dorothy Murphy. She says good evening and to stay warm and safe. I think I mentioned that Sister Bonnie was here, but if I didn't, she's here and she's saying good evening. Audrey Jaycox is here, and Audrey says good evening to everybody. Jack Orloff is here, and he says good evening. So does Connie Taylor. She says good evening to everyone. So I want to say hey to them just as well. Just want to remind you guys that there are a few announcements that we have, and those announcements are we have entered a season where you got to make sure you have your vaccines. So, just as a reminder, Dr. Maya couldn't be here tonight, but Dr. Maya wanted to remind everyone to make sure that you get your updated COVID vaccines and your flu vaccines. There is a new strain of flu that's out. I don't know if Dr. Hampton wants to talk about that for 2.5 seconds, but go ahead if you want to. The
Yeah.
new strain of flu.
Yeah. Every year we get flu information from other countries like China, for example, right? And every year it can change to something different. So, and so we have this influenza A, H3N2. They keep changing the numbers, right? And so these new variants that the CDC has identified are why we focus on vaccines, because as the variants change, the severity can change. And so that's why for those who are okay with vaccines, it would be helpful to protect yourself, because maybe what you got the previous year, which won't, that immunity wanes. You're really putting yourself in a good position to not succumb to it. So if I'm high risk, if I'm let's just say I'm over 65, which is, we define it that way at times, or I have multiple chronic health conditions, it's possible that your immune system has to react to that vaccine and you feel a little under the weather for a day or so. But what you've done is greatly reduce the risk that if I get exposed to this new variant, the chances that I will die goes down substantially. And as of the last time I looked it up, you have about 70,000 or so people who can die from the flu every year. These are not numbers, these are people. So
Right.
put yourself in the position to be successful. And I encourage people who are at high risk in particular to be vaccinated. I consider myself high risk because I work in healthcare. So my wife will come to me. She's a pharmacist and she will shoot my arm. I think she's doing payback, Nikki. I receive it. I receive it with grace. Okay.
Payback would not be an injection in the arm.
Okay.
Payback would be an extensive credit card bill from
Watch
Junior.
yourself.
That's
a woman
payback.
talking. That's a woman talking. Okay. I hear you. Thanks for the heads up. Okay.
Or Louis Vuitton or Gucci or something like that. That would be payback. When you go buy 10 purses at one time, that's the payback.
Amen.
So before anybody asks, well, this flu came out after the new flu vaccine was made. It's just like Dr. Hampton just said. It's this new, the vaccine was not made for this new strand. However, it does give you coverage that you will not succumb. So just a reminder to make sure that you do that just as well. So we want to share that. And once again, if you are in a place and you just don't feel safe, or too many people are coughing and sneezing, just put a mask on. It's okay. It's okay to put a mask on. I keep them in my purse. I pop them on all the time, depending on where I'm at. So just put a mask on, because COVID is still out here and it is still real just as well. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was happy and healthy over that one. Also, Pastor Sai could not be here with us on tonight, but he did send a announcement just as well. And the announcement is Man Up and Get Screened, a prostate health awareness event. So they are asking that you join them at New Landmark Church. That's located at 2700 West on Wilcox Street. And to join them there Saturday, December 13th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And their community partners are UIC Health in Miles Square, Breakthrough Ministries, Community Healing, the Leaders Network, and the Prostate Cancer Real Talk. So they want to make sure that you meet them there. I will post a flyer about that. So join them and learn about prostate health, signs and symptoms of prostate cancer, when to get screened, treatments, and life after a diagnosis, and to hear from doctors and specialists and survivors. They're going to also be providing a free lunch, and that it's also open to the public and all are welcome. So once again, join them at New Landmark Missionary Baptist Church, 2700 West on Wilcox, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Well, Doug, what's your until next Monday?
I guess what I'm going to say is when you hear things, you really have to know the source.
Mm.
And you have to know what the training and background is of the source.
Mm.
Because I've heard a number of things today, and the first thing that goes to my mind is, are they trying to provoke a feeling? They're trying to make you afraid. Then put your hand over your pocketbook, grab your purse, and tighten up. Or if they're claiming that they know something and that this is the way to go, I really want to know what their background is. What's their professional training? What's their experience and what their track record is? Because there's a difference between being an influencer, who's really a salesman, and somebody who's an expert who actually knows. So you really got to be careful of what you hear and who you follow.
Outstanding, outstanding. Also, want to say hi to Tyrena Newkirk from the NAACP, who is here with us just as well. Want to say hey to the Core Center that is here. I did not forget you. It got late in the hour, but I did not forget you. And we also want to say hi to the guys over in the garage. They are here just as well. So, hey, gentlemen. And I just got a text from University of Chicago. Now, UI Health and University of Chicago is two different places. And University of Chicago wanted to remind me that they are a community partner of the event also over at New Landmark Church. So that's University of Chicago School of Public Health. So the School of Public Health will also be at the New Landmark event on Saturday, December 13th. So thank you so much for sending me that text, letting me know that you will be a part of it just as well. Well, Tony, you're until next Monday, Dr. Hampton.
Yeah, I just, as we try to maintain hope, when I mentioned I took 8 people off medicines in a couple of weeks, those people didn't give up hope on themselves. They just heard a message of healing and said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So there's really not much you can control in the world, but there's a ton of things you can control in your own life. So as we kind of look towards the new year, find a couple of areas in your life that you can control. And with that habit change, it's highly probable that the outcome is going to be a healthier you a year from now. A person may be taking less medicine a year from now. A person who sleeps better a year from now. A person who manages stress better a year from now. A person who eats real food, not processed food, a year from now. If you do those things, you'll have this cascade of benefits that I would have to spend an hour explaining. And then you will then have more time on this planet to be with your friends and family, and maybe even to make it to 95 and to watch the Bears play a game against the Packers and know what's going on. Amen. And it's not an outlier to say this because one of my patients last week was 102, and he came there with his wife, and they drove each other to the, he has a hearing issue, but that's it. And he would absolutely be able to watch that game and know what's going on. So this is a possibility. And for the men out there, this is a Black man. So let's be clear. This is very doable. You got to get a little blessed, lucky, whichever way you want to look at it. Life happens, but you have the power to change your life. So let's retain that power. And I'll see you guys next Monday.
Outstanding. Well, Congressman, take us home.
Well, the quality of life and improving quality of life, I think is a motivation that causes many people to keep moving upward.
Mm.
And if you've got a positive attitude, of course, this is the season that has a tendency to bring out the best in people. I mean, even Scrooge and the Grinch, even those who believe that you can't do anything that's really worth living, they give up a little bit and say, at least, I mean, you get to listening to Nat King Cole, chestnuts roasting, and the drifters, and all these great, even if you don't believe, Silent Night, Holy Night, it changes your perspective. And so while you're changing, think of all the positive things that one can do. And if everybody just went around passing out warm fuzzies as opposed to cold pricklies. Yeah, I used to do all kind of work. I've done all kinds of stuff. I used to be a management consultant. I used to do human relations training. I used to help people learn how to get along with each other who had trouble doing so. And if you approach life that way, even though it may be cold outside, if you got that hot chocolate and, and some marshmallows and things going on the inside, I end with a little saying that I used to use a lot. And that is, I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening time when I counted my scanty store. But I found that life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, then you must bear the task. I work for a menial hire, a penny, only to learn dismayed that whatever price I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. Whatever you put into it, that's exactly what you'll get out of it by next Monday, even. So thanks, and we'll see you then. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, Congressman.